Pleased to announce that we're joined by Dr. Irman Abdul Rahman. Irman, over to you. Thank you.
Can you hear me, Carl?
We can indeed, loud and clear.
Okay, so thank you very much, everybody. Let me just toggle my view. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to say thank you very much for everybody for attending this talk today. Thank you very much, Carl and Sally, for inviting me to share some experience that we have in developing educational programs in nuclear security. I'd like to say thank you to all of you for attending. I hope that at the end of the session, we'll have some good question and answers if any of the points that were raised were not clear. So before we start, I think maybe I could briefly introduce myself. My name is, as you can see there, is Irman Abdul Rahman. You can call me Irman. I'm currently the head of the Nuclear Technology Research Center at the Faculty of Science and Technology, National University of Malaysia, or the University Kebangsaan. I've now working in academia for almost 20 years, but I'm quite relatively new to the nuclear security field. I only started dabbling in nuclear security since 2008. A lot of it was in nuclear security education. So I'm also the point of contact for the National University at the International Nuclear Security Education Network at the IAEA. I'm also the alternate point of contact for the INET EPR network, the National Nuclear Education and Training for Emergency Preparedness and Response at the IAEA. At the INSEN, I was the former chair of Working Group 1 at INSEN. So I think without further ado, maybe we can move on to the next slide, please, Carl. Okay, so this is something that I asked Carl to introduce for this webinar. I thought it would be quite prudent if I could actually get some feedback from the people who are attending this seminar or this webinar on your background, so we could, so I could help and emphasize specific points that might be of interest to you. So maybe we could take some time to fill out the Mentimeter, and then Carl will help me and show us the results of the polls. That way, I have a better understanding of who will be listening to this webinar today, and maybe emphasize better points during the webinar itself. So maybe we can start now, Carl. So this is going to be a very short poll. There's about 5 questions to gauge your background. I would appreciate if everybody could fill it out so we could so I could get a good idea who's attending the seminar. So we'll give, I think, about a minute for every question. So there's going to be 5 questions, so 5 minutes. Okay, interesting. Fair balance between educational networks, institutions, and research institutes.
You cornered the market, Irman.
Come again?
You've cornered the market.
So we have the right people at the talk then, I guess. Yep. Okay. So that's the end of the poll. I think it's actually quite a good audience. People who will be very interested in either developing a new educational program or people who will be interested in joining a new educational program. So I think this is a good balance of audience. Okay, we move on to the next question, Carl. So this question would be more for those who do offer new educational programs or trainings. So I wanted to find out, I mean, in your member state, what would be the main motivation of offering such a program? Just pick one that you think is the most suitable or the most perfect for you. Now this is looking good. One institute, okay. So we have another 10 seconds. Income generation. So nobody's offering programs for trend setting, yeah? Okay, so that's the end of that question. So that's good. It seems that a lot of the audience here today offer new education programs for national human capital development needs. That's quite similar to our case. So you will have some similarities. The next question, Carl. Thank you. This is a question that I introduced to see whether or not the audience has any experience or maybe some experience in developing new education programs. So at least we have at least one expert developer with us here, Carl, today. So if you have any issues, you can ask this one audience to help us answer some questions if I get stuck.
Thanks so much. That's not you filling out the mentor need poll.
No.
That's good. We got a good spread, I think.
Yep.
People who are interested and people who have the opportunity here.
That's good. That's good. A lot of people are somewhat experienced, so that's good. So a lot of things I'll be talking about, they will be quite well aware of, I think. Okay, can we move on to the next final two questions, Carl? So the final two questions are just basically asking your familiarity on the NSS Nuclear Security Series 12 and the revision version 12T. So, okay. That's good. That's good. A lot of people have read NSS 12. How are we on the time, Carl, for the answer?
Apologies so much. Let's give it another 10 seconds or so. I think all people have voted now, so that's great. Okay,
perfect. So, okay, a lot of you are very familiar or familiar but never used it. So that's okay. That's good. Okay, and the final question. So this is asking of your familiarity with the NSS 12T revision 1. So this is the newest nuclear security series document in nuclear security education. It was published earlier this year. So I wouldn't be surprised if you've never seen it yet. I mean, I've only had the chance to read it a few times as well. I mean, in the published version, I've seen the draft many times, but the published version, never. Okay. So there seems to be quite a few of the audience members who are really well versed in development of education programs. Carl, that's really good.
No, it really is. And we got some new people who've not heard about the guide before, so that's really positive as well for the webinar. So we've got, hopefully we'll be able to get new insights in the sharing. Just a disclaimer to everybody, like I said, I too am still quite youngish in developing new educational programs in nuclear security. So I also would really appreciate any input or feedback that you have from your experience. Or maybe disagreements with my experience that will help us go do better in the future. So that's the end of the polling question. Thank you very much. It seems to me, if I summarize this, the balance is quite good. We have a few people from the academia. We have a few people from the research institutes, and the balance of people who are familiar with NSS 12 is quite good. A few people haven't heard of it, so after this webinar, you can actually say that you've heard of it, maybe even familiar. And we also have a good spread of people who have experience developing new education programs. So it will be quite good. I'm looking forward to sharing some experience with you, and I also hope that you can share some of your experiences with me. I mean, via the chat or via the questions. So can we move on to the next slide? Okay, so basically, I wanted to introduce. To be fair to everybody, I wanted to also introduce myself if I was answering the question. So these are the 5 same questions that I showed you before. Best description of my institution would be education institution as well.
So it's the National University of Malaysia. In our university, the main motivation of offering new educational programs is human capital development needs. Now, I know that some find that this might be a trivial question to ask, but based on my experience developing a few educational programs around the world, sometimes the main motivation of offering new programs is merely profit based. So the first question that they ask you when you say, "Are you interested in offering an educational program in nuclear security?" The first question that they ask you is, "Can we make any money out of it?" So I think in a lot of developing countries, profit is secondary. Of course, the university wants us not to lose money, but it's more to fulfill the human capital development needs of the nation. So this is quite common in developing countries. In developed countries, it's a bit more competitive, and the motivation is a bit more different. So it's good to see that a lot of the audience have quite similar motivations in offering new educational programs. Because in my experience, your motivation of offering a new educational program will determine the success of the program itself. My experience in developing new educational programs. So I have some experience developing our own masters in nuclear safety, security, and safeguards. So I'll be talking about it in this webinar simply by simply by calling it the MSc Nuclear in 3S. And I also have some experience working with the agency in developing a new program that the agency is trying to propose, which is the Masters in Safety and Security, interface Masters program. Familiarity with NSS 12. I'm very familiar with the NSS 12. I've read it many times, especially when I was working and developing these new curriculum. And the NSS 12T, I'm actually quite familiar with it, even when it was in its draft version. So later on, I'll talk about this. But the revision of NSS 12T started in 2015, and it was only published in 2021 because of some obvious, reasons. It's not easy to publish a document under the IAEA. So I've looked at the draft for a long time before it was actually published. So I have some familiarity with it. Next, please. Okay, so this is just a brief slide to show you the content of the talk. It's going to be quite simple because I wanted to spend more time on question and answers with you. And I like to make this session more like a sharing of experience session instead of like a information bombarding you with information. Basically, what we did and what we found the challenges were, and what I think would be useful if how the NSS 12T would help you if you were thinking about offering a new educational program. Next, Carl. Okay, so a brief introduction about the place where I work, the nuclear science program at the University Kebangsaan Malaysia, or the National University of Malaysia. Next. Our program, or our department, was established in 1978 with the offering of its SC in nuclear science, Bachelor of Science in nuclear science. We enroll typically about 30 to 40 students every year for undergraduate and 30 postgraduate students for every academic session. At the time being, we have graduated almost about 2,000 undergraduate students in Bachelor of Science and about 300 students in MSc and PhD postgraduate students. And to date, still in Malaysia, we are still the only university in Malaysia that offers a specialized degree in nuclear science. Recently, there was another university that offered a specialized degree in nuclear engineering, but in nuclear science and technology, we are the only university that offers a specialized degree in this. So it's a very niche market. The kind of degrees that we offer at the program, we have the Bachelor of Science. So this is the basic degree. We have a few master program. So the nuclear science by research. We have a very established radiation and nuclear and safety radiation and nuclear safety course, masters by course. And then the one that I'll be talking today about is the nuclear safety, security, and safeguards by course. First intake is planned for September 2022, and the application will be open from March to May. I have at the end of this presentation, I will share my email. So if you have any questions about application to this particular program, please do ask me, and I will respond to you as soon as possible. The final program that we have, of course, at the program is the Doctor of Philosophy PhD in nuclear science. Next, please. Okay, so I wanted to share this slide to show you how our program or our particular department fits in the nuclear science in the Malaysian human resource development landscape in Malaysia. So it's a very niche program, like I said. There's only one program of its like in Malaysia. So our bachelor's degree program, it forms the entry level to a lot of the nuclear industry related job places. So if you were going to the regulatory body or maybe the research institute, if you were going to be a medical physicist or maybe go to the industry as a radiation protection officer, typically these people will have our bachelor's degree as an entry level qualification. And then when they go into the job, usually they come back to us to enhance the capabilities and skills and expertise by taking one of our master's programs. So in Malaysia, this makes us a bit unique in the sense that whenever an agency or a government stakeholder wants a particular set of skills to be developed by its employers, they will come to us and they will say, you know what, we think our people need a master's degree in this. Could you please consider offering one to fulfill the needs of the nation? And that's how a lot of our programs are developed. It's usually from a request from a stakeholder or multiple stakeholders to develop a program that fulfills a particular niche. So that's how we fit into the puzzle of the Malaysian HRD landscape. And then typically at the end, when these people want to enhance their careers or maybe even move to academia after having like 20 or 30 years in the industry, they usually take a PhD with us and they use this PhD as the requirement or for them to enhance their careers or move to the academia. Okay, next, Carl. Okay, so I'll talk briefly about the Master of Science in Nuclear Safety, Security and Safeguards, 3S. So I'll just say the nuclear 3S after this, because it's quite a tongue twister actually, it's quite long. So I'll just, when I say Masters in 3S, I'm talking about this particular program. Yes, Carl, next. Okay, so how did it start out with? It started out, the background of this master's program, like I mentioned before, was actually a request from the regulatory body in Malaysia, which is the Atomic Energy Licensing Board. So we signed an MOU with them in 2010. These bullets here show the content of the MOU, which activities we wanted to carry out with each other. So the main focus was joint research, joint SEPA program, communication, education, and public awareness programs about nuclear in our community, in the Malaysian community, joint activities, seminars, workshops, trainings. So we typically either organize or co-organize trainings with the regulatory body, depending on the suitability of the training program, which allows them also to use the facilities at the university. So if they want to use labs and lecture theaters, we can co-organize these trainings with them. And cooperation in human resource development. So in this particular MOU, there was a very clear line that we should consider, and this was a request from the regulatory body, the offering of a master's in nuclear 3S as a way of them to fulfill the requirements of their job needs. Next. Okay, so why did they want us, or why was it that we wanted to offer a master's in nuclear 3S? So this is a question that I typically get whenever I travel around. Some people say that by offering a master's in 3S, they are, jack of all trades, masters of nothing. Why don't you just offer a master's in safety and then another master's in security and then another master's in safeguards? But so I always tell these people that every member state has different needs. In our case, our needs were very specific. The needs were, we wanted to have, we had a lot of obligations that we need to fulfill, even though we are not yet a nuclear power country, that required knowledge at our regulatory body, at our operators, and at the licensees. So there was a lot of requests for these people so that we had the common understanding of safety, security, and safeguards to have a master's program. It was also a way for us to actually have the basic background knowledge in the regulators, for the regulators, operators, and practitioners, because of the number of staff. So
For example, our regulatory body, they have less than 200 people as staff members at the regulatory body, but they have quite a lot of responsibilities because they cover all safety, security, and safeguards. And whenever there's a mobility or movement of staff between divisions, it always is a big issue when somebody needs to catch up again on, if they were moving before from safeguards to security, they have to forget everything about safeguards and relearn everything about security. So they asked us to have, a master's program where everybody would have the same basic understanding. So this mobility would be would be smoother. It would be easier for people to move between divisions because they all have a quite similar understanding of the topics. And we also wanted to introduce this as a way of introducing nuclear security to the nuclear community prior to having a more specific national security program being established. Because as a lot of the other developing countries, our knowledge in nuclear security is very young, it's very green. So we wanted to find a way to introduce nuclear security to the nuclear community, and at the same time offering an educational program to come with it. So this is one of the efforts that we took. In the student's perspective, why would a student want to take 3S? So in our country, having expertise in nuclear 3S integrated is actually quite a unique skill, quite a unique sets of knowledge. So it will build expertise. So a lot of them are asking to join the program simply because it's a new program that gives them opens quite a few unique possibilities and options for them. It's also a program that we wanted to offer as a natural progression to our undergraduate program. So at the time, in the time being, whenever they finish the BSc in nuclear science, they usually go into the masters in safety and radiation, nuclear and radiation safety. But we wanted to offer a bigger, diverse topic by offering a new masters that covers security as well. So that was one of the motivations. And in certain situations, having a master's in 3S will also help in hiring or give promotion advantages to some candidates. So some candidates who are actually working already in the industry, by having this master's, it could help them obtain a pay rise and better job positions in the companies and in the agencies. Next, Carl. Okay, I'm going to talk briefly about the development of the 3S program. I won't go into depth about this because I think we had some previous sessions that we went quite in depth about how we developed the program. So I'll just give you a brief overview. It's quite similar to a lot of the other programs that are developed everywhere in the world. We use the same kind of approach. Of course, the challenges are a bit different to different member states, but the approach is quite similar. Next. Okay, so the first thing that we did was we wanted to make sure that because we're doing a master's in the 3S's, safety, security, and safeguards, we wanted to make sure that we were using references that were relevant and that were suitable to represent all the 3S's. So for the nuclear security element, we used the IAEA NSS 12 back then in 2010. It was published. For the nuclear safety, radiation safety element, we used the TC18. A lot of you know this as the PGEC program offered by the IAEA in radiation protection and the safety of radiation sources as our guide. For the safeguards element, we use the SARDA document for syllabus course development in nuclear safeguards and non-proliferation. And we also looked at one master's program that was available back then, offered by UC-LAN, which was the Masters in Nuclear Safety, Security and Safeguards offered by UC-LAN. So we used this as a benchmark as well when we looked at developing this program. Next. Okay, so there's a bit of a delay, but okay, this diagram basically is the summary or simplification of the approach that we took in developing our program. I was asked a question when I first introduced this to the International Nuclear Security Education Network, whether or not our approach used the SAT approach or the systematic approach to training. Actually, when I look back at it, it's actually a modification of that. We use similar elements to SAT, but because there's a big difference between educational programs and training programs, a lot of it, there was a big difference as well in that sense. So if you look at this, it was separated into like 3 main phases, which was the analysis phase,
the design and development phase, and the evaluation. There were a lot of things that we had to consider in each of these phases when we were developing the curriculum. We did actually, with the IAEA assistance, do 2 revisions or 2 reviews of our syllabus and curriculum to see if the curriculum was well suited or not, and whether or not it was in line with the international standards. So the numbers that you can see there actually also highlights the kind of challenges that we had to face. So, for example, when we wanted to run the program, what would we propose as the overall learning objectives of the program? Who would be the employers, or what career would our students take after they took our master's program? What other universities were out there offering similar programs that we could look at to benchmark? What was the balance between the 3 S's, safety, security, and safeguards? Would it be 30%, 30%, 30%, or maybe it would be security heavy or safety heavy? So we had to consider that as well. Also, the balance between whether or not it was a non-technical or technical courses. So in security, you can find a lot of non-technical and technical topics. So what was the balance of that? Should we have more technical topics or more non-technical topics in our mix? And then what were the topics that we need to cover? So all of these issues that challenges that we faced through the development of the program is highlighted in this particular webinar. So I'll share with you how the new NSS 12 will help you alleviate some of these issues. Next, please, Carl. Okay, so this is the slide that I showed just to summarize the kind of challenges that you could typically see when you try to develop a new educational program in nuclear security, especially in the context of our developing countries. For the context of more developed countries, the challenges are a bit different. So they have different challenges that they need to talk about. But for countries that are similar to Malaysia, in the sense that we are developing countries, these are the kind of challenges that you will typically see. I separated the challenges into 2 parts. The first one is the challenges that you will typically see when you develop the program, and then the challenge that you will typically see in the offering of the program. So these are the kind of issues. So these are basically extracted from the previous slide. The ones that you don't see in the previous slide is the challenges that you will see in the offering. In our case, one of the biggest challenges was the limited knowledge and expertise amongst the existing academics in nuclear security. So even though our university has been established in 1970s, and our program has been running since 1978, we have very limited knowledge. When we first were starting to think about offering this 3S program, we had very limited knowledge in nuclear security because a lot of our academics are trained in radiation protection and nuclear safety. So we had to relearn everything. Of course, the other issue for developing countries is facilities and equipment. This is also a big issue for us because in order to have really good nuclear security education program, you have to have the right equipment and facilities for people to be able to hold, do hands-on experience and laboratories with the equipment so that they know how the equipment is being used. It's one thing teaching them theoretically about the equipment, but it's another when we actually give them a chance to do, touch and use the equipment themselves. So it's a totally different learning experience. Also, there's also some challenges in ensuring enrollment numbers. So whenever you offer a program, obviously there will be some sort of enrollment number that you have to fulfill. In the case of our nuclear 3S program, the university said that it will only offer the program if we can get 10 enrollments a year. Anything less than that, they will not offer that program for that year. So it's a challenge to get 10 students because it's a very specific topic. So I will show later on how we think we could come up some solutions that we could do to increase this number. And obviously the sustainability of the program. You want the program to run over a longer period of time instead of only offering it for like 2 or 3 years and it just dies out because nobody is enrolling anymore. Next. Okay, so these 3 slides will discuss briefly about the NSS 12 and NSS 12T revision 1. The good thing is about the poll just now is a lot of people are familiar with the NSS 12 and the NSS 12T, except for maybe 3 people who've never heard about the NSS 12T revision before. So for the NSS 12, which is called the Educational Program in Nuclear Security, it was published in 2010. It actually outlines how to, if you wanted to offer a new master's program
Masters of Science program in nuclear security, this is the document that you can use. So it gives you the different kind of learning objective, the different kind of prerequisites, what courses you can include, what elective courses, what modules you can include. Or if you were thinking about not offering it as a full-fledged master's program, just offering it as a certificate program, you can also look at NSS 12 because it also shows you how to make it just a certificate program. It was based on analysis of relevant academic programs from around the world and the nuclear security guidance that existed at that time. So in 2010, there weren't that many programs in the world that was offering a specified nuclear security education program. So the experience that was obtained wasn't that much when they developed NSS 12 in the beginning. And then, like I said before, it was revised in 2015. Next. So this is the NSS 12P. This is the new one, published in 2021. Why was it revisioned? Why was the NSS 12 revised? There were two main factors. The first factor was there were a lot of new and revised nuclear security guidance being developed since the publication of the original NSS 12. So NSS 12 was published in 2010. Now I think the newest NSS document that has been published this year is NSS 40. So there were a lot of new documents coming out that basically rendered the old NSS 12 obsolete because new information, new guidelines were coming out, and all of this had to be reflected in the NSS 12. So the second factor was feedback and comments on the structure and content of the current NSS curriculum provided by members of INSAN on the basis of developed teaching materials, authored books, conducted professional development courses for faculty members, implemented degree programs and modules and courses at the universities. So in short, what happened was when we published NSS 12 in 2010, everybody took it, really happy to have a guidance to develop new education program in nuclear security, used it, and based on all of the experience that we learned developing new teaching material, writing textbooks, conducting PDCs, offering programs, closing programs, enrolling students, all of this experience were combined and collected and included in the new NSS 12. So the new NSS 12 is a much more, it has a lot more lessons learned in it compared to the previous one. And this was, like I said, published in 2020, quite recently. Next. Okay, so what's changed? What's changed since the new, if you compare the old NSS 12 with the revision 1 NSS 12, it's more focused. So the title has changed a bit. It's now academic curriculum in nuclear security. So that was quite an important point because there was a confusion when they published the original NSS 12 that we had to take everything that was offered in the NSS 12 as part of our course when you were offering a new master's program. And that was one of the downfalls of some of these programs. The new NSS 12 basically says this is a menu. There's a model curriculum that we are offering, but it's really up to you to pick whatever you want and use in your own member state because different member states have different needs. So it's really up to you to choose the right ones for you, and you don't necessarily need to offer every course that's being proposed in this document. So that was a big change from the initial point of view, I think. It reflects the most current guidance. So everything that was published quite recently has been included in NSS series that were published recently were included in the NSS 12T. It reflected the practical experiences of implementing educational programs in nuclear security. So after the introduction of the NSS 12 original, a lot of programs popped up. Some survived for a couple of years and then had to be closed. Some are still going on till now. Some changed and adopted into different programs. Some even upgraded current programs that were existing programs that were being offered at the university and changed into a different version, a better version that contained nuclear security elements. So there were a lot of experiences obtained from this, and all of this was captured in this new NSS 12T. It will make better IAEA assist member states in implementing such programs and build their sustainable capacity in nuclear security. So this was some of the experience that we obtained as well when we had the chance under the INSAN umbrella to go to member states that were asking for assistance in developing new educational programs. So when we look at the programs and we look at the old NSS 12,
we found that actually there's some level or degree of flexibility that's required, so that the education modules fit with that particular member state's needs. So don't say this is your way is the best way of doing things, because when you go to a different member state, they have a totally different needs in their member state, and they want to do it in their way as well. So there's no right way about doing it, but there's obviously a good way about doing it for your own country. Next. Okay, so let's see how the new NSS 12T helped us, at least in my case in Malaysia, in addressing some of these issues that we saw in developing the educational program. Next. So on the left side, I just recopied the challenges that we had in the previous slides that I was talking about. So on the right, you can see how the new NSS 12T alleviates or provides solutions for these particular challenges. So for example, if you're thinking about the best way to develop or determine your learning objectives and outcomes, in the new NSS 12T, page 14, there's already a whole set of proposed appropriate learning program learning outcomes that you can adopt. So depending on your needs, you can change these, but there's already some suggestions of what learning programs, learning objectives should be included in the master's program in nuclear security, or a mixed program in master's safety, security, and safeguards. The issue about benchmarking. So when we first started looking at the program, there were a few programs that were offering similar programs, but a lot of it was non-English speaking programs. So we were struggling a bit. That's why we used the UC-LAN example, because that was a recent program, 3S, and it was in English. So it was easy for us to understand the context. But there were a lot of other programs. The good thing about the NSS 12T is it's already collected all of these benchmarked programs all around the world into the document. So in a sense, you no longer need to do the benchmarking, because the benchmarking has already been done for you. How did we did the benchmarking for the NSS 12T? It was done with the collaboration of INSEN, obviously, the International Nuclear Security Education Network. At the moment, I think we have about approximately 197 members around the world of different institutions, English speaking, Spanish speaking, Arabic speaking, you name it, Chinese speaking. So all of these institutions has got together and shared the experience, and we know almost all of the educational programs that are out there in nuclear security, and we obtain lessons learned from all of them. Identification of possible employers and career paths. So this is actually quite a big issue, I think. Whenever you offer new programs, some people always ask you, where would these students go and work with? And this will be very important, because it will also have an impact on your enrollment. So if you look at the NSS 12T, the revision, there's actually already a discussion about possible notional career pathways. I'll show you the slide later of what it's talking about, but it gives you a good idea about where your students can go to. And on the flip side, it also gives you a good idea about where you can take students from. So that's actually quite interesting. I'll show you this later. Prerequisite knowledge, it's also suggested in page 4 of the NSS 12T. Balance between the 3S. So in the 12T, there's a really good discussion on how, depending on what kind of program you want to offer, which courses you should include. So this is also quite helpful as well. This was a big change from the previous one, which had no, there was no suggestion about if it was a master's in, for example, engineering, nuclear engineering, which courses should be in there, or if it was a master's in international relations in nuclear security, which courses should be in there. So there was no information about that in the previous version, but in this version, it's been it's been discussed to the level of you can actually select which courses are suitable for which programs that you want to offer. Okay, so we can maybe move on to the next slide to highlight what I mentioned before. So this is the diagram that you can see in the NSS 12T about the possible. Okay, sorry about that. So this is the diagram that you can see in the NSS 12T in regards to the notional career pathways. So it suggests that if you have a master's in nuclear security, depending on which field of expertise you are looking at, students can go into these different career pathways. They can go and go to the science pathway, engineering pathway, policy and international relation pathway, intelligence and security pathway, legal and regulatory, response and law enforcement, management pathway. So it's actually quite a diverse field if they do the Masters of Nuclear Security, but it's really up to you to determine which pathway you're most interested in. So we use this information on the flip side. So other than worrying about where our students would go to, we can also use this same diagram to work out which agencies we can go to get students. So for in our example, we can go to the legal and regulatory, or the regulatory board, regulatory authority, and get possible students from there. We can also go to the research institute and say, okay, we can get possible students. Some of your people might be interested in doing a master's in Trias with us. We can also go to the law enforcement, maybe to the police or the customs office, and say, okay, there's a certain element that's being covered for like illicit trafficking and crime scene management that we teach in the Trias course that might be of advantage to your staff members. So we also used it as a way of, working out what possible agencies could maybe send students to be enrolled in our program. So we used it in the flip side. Next. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. So in the NSS 12T revision 1, you have this diagram. So for example, if you were thinking about developing a Masters of Nuclear Security, focusing on engineering students, these are the kind of courses that you could take. NSE 5, NSE 6, NSE 7, NSE. I won't bore you with the details. NSS 12T has about 156 pages. A whole chunk of that, or a major chunk of that, is about what each of these courses is about: the learning outcomes, the requisites, the topics that are included, the references, even possible ways of assessment have all been defined in NSS 12T, a bulk of it. So I won't bore you with the details. I'll make sure that Carl will make sure that everybody will get a copy of the slides if they want, so that they can look for themselves. But this is what I meant. So for example, if you had let's say a master's degree in international relations, but you wanted to add in the element of nuclear security, maybe you can consider adding these three courses to have this nuclear security flavor. NSC 1, which is the interfaces of security, safety and safeguards. NSC 2, developing new security regulation. And NSC 4, international cooperation, nuclear security. So that would give you a good coverage of nuclear security topics in international relations. So in this way, you don't need to necessarily offer a new educational program. You can also embed courses into your ongoing or existing programs to give it some nuclear security flavor. This is the whole idea of NSS 12T. And to some member states and some universities, this is a more a convenient idea than thinking about developing a new master's from scratch. Because, for example, I already have a nuclear engineering program, but I want to include nuclear security topics, so I can just take these listed topics and add them in to make my nuclear engineering program now have coverage in nuclear security. Or I already have a master's in management program, but I want to add in nuclear security elements into this program, so I could just pick out these topics and include them into my program so that it becomes partly nuclear security as well. So it's much flexible compared to the previous NSC 12. Okay, that's the whole point of this slide, I think. So it's really up to you to mix and match. Next. Okay, so on the other challenges that I showed you about the offering, in the offering phase, when you offered the master's program, so this is a bit texty, it's a bit wordy, but I took this exactly out of the NSS 12T for your understanding. So it says that challenges to consider, universities planning to establish educational programs in nuclear security might need to address two important challenges, okay? The first challenge is the availability of qualified instructors. So as you saw in my previous slides, this was an issue that we had, being a developing country. The academia, the academics, the faculty that we already have at the moment does not have the necessary knowledge and expertise in nuclear security to offer a new nuclear security education program. So the solution in NSS 12T, so if you read NSS 12T, this is what it proposes as a solution. This issue can be addressed through the various options outlined above for different teaching methodology approaches. So it proposes that you can solve this problem by having different type of teaching methodologies, which include tabletop, virtual. There's a lot of methods that you can use that does not really require a huge expertise on your part as an academic, but it's more like facilitating students to understand the knowledge. In addition, the sharing of experience, resources, and good practice in nuclear security education among states is valuable, as are faculty development courses by more experienced institutions and academics. So our solution to this was we included SMEs, subject matter experts from outside of the university to teach nuclear security. So we obtained some teachers or some professors from the regulatory body, from the research institute. We also hired new faculty members. We sent our existing faculty members for retooling via training workshops and PDCs. So that's what basically happened to me. My PhD was in biomedical physics. I'm a radiation biophysicist, but I have now some understanding of nuclear security based on all of the training workshops and PDCs that I have joined. And this information is what I use to teach to the students. Okay, so it's possible to learn new knowledge and retool yourself for nuclear security, as long as you have the right background. Okay. Next. Okay, so it's a bit laggy on my side, but the second challenge was quite similar to the challenge that we had as well in terms of facilities and equipment. In most developing countries, there is no availability of well-equipped laboratories that can be used in educational settings. There are quite good laboratories, but they are for proper research, not for education. So, but without these kind of laboratories or equipment, it's very hard for you to run a good nuclear security education program. So what we did was we used the solution of T, and we partnered ourselves with the Malaysian Nuclear Security Support Center, which is actually very established in Malaysia, which has 3 well-equipped laboratories. So they have a acceptance testing laboratory for detection equipment. They have a physical protection system laboratory for physical protection equipment. And then they also have now a big laboratory for loaner pools. So they have a huge stockpile of equipment that's meant for loaner pool to loan to other countries in the region. But when these are not used, we can use them for education and training purposes in Malaysia. Okay, next. I think I'm running a bit behind on time. Okay, this is basically the issues regarding to enrollment and sustainability. 2 things that we need to ensure is how to make people interested in our program. That's the most important thing. You need to make people interested in joining the program. And secondly, how can we sustain this interest for a longer period of time so that we always have students that are enrolled. Our solution that we offer in Malaysia is we are now offering this course as an executive mode. So students are not required to leave their jobs. If they're working with the regulatory body, they can work from Monday to Friday and then come to classes on Saturday and Sunday. So they don't have to leave their jobs. Hopefully this will be more appealing to people who are already in the career and don't want to leave their jobs. A second is to consider offering additional educational programs regionally. So I'll explain this in the next slide. Next, please, Carl. Okay, so what we did was we were looking at the possibility of offering our program in a regional context by partnering with different universities. So in our case, there's 3 universities in our region. There's our university, the National University. There's the University of Gajah Mada in Indonesia. And then there's the Chulalongkorn University in Thailand. So we got together, and then because of these issues of sustainability, increasing student pool, sharing of and leveraging of expertise, we got together and we discussed the possibility of offering maybe like training programs or dual programs. And at the minimum, we were discussing about the possibility of sharing teaching expertise between the 2 universities because it's quite near. and inter-university research supervision. So we can have a student maybe enrolled from Indonesia. He or she could have a supervisor in our university, and maybe another university, another supervisor in Gajah Mada, for example. That's the kind of thinking that we're still working on this initiative, but I'm more interested in running the program first and then thinking about this regional context. Next. Okay, so just a brief summary to cap out everything that I've discussed. Every member state has a very specific HRD need and motivation. It's very important to have the right motivation because it goes a long way into the success of your program. The form of the educational program is totally up to you. You can be a module, it can be a course, it could be a certificate, or it could be a full-fledged program. There are inherent challenges in developing these new educational programs. The NSS 12T is actually now geared to help you solve these problems, because there's a lot of solutions that are being proposed based on our experience that has been collected. Of course, a lot of effort should be given to sustain the program instead of just making a 1 year or 2 year program. And then there's always assistance from the IAEA, especially from the INSEN, for institutions in member states that are interested to set up their new education program. So you can feel free to contact the IAEA through the INSEN network, and if you will be more than happy to assist you in developing a new education program in your member state. The next slide, I think, Carl, is just an acknowledgement slide. I just want to say thank you to Carl and Sally and the CSS group in King's College for allowing me the opportunity to share some experience. I'd like to thank personally as well Dr. Dimitri Didnikonov from ORNL for the material. He was the person who was working very closely with NSS 12 at the IAEA as the Nuclear Security Education Officer, and he was the person who developed the NSS 12T. So if there's one person in the world that knows these two documents the best, it will be him. I also want to thank my collaborators from the region, Dr. Siana from UGM and Professor Nilsuwan Kosit from Chulalongkorn, and of course the regulatory body of Malaysia for all the support that they have given us. Okay, so I'm giving it back to you, Carl. Sorry, I think I've run a bit over time.
Not at all. Thank you so much. That was fascinating. I know we got a couple of questions as well, so we'll get those in. But no, Irman, that really was fascinating. Thank you so much. And I can see people have already started putting messages in the chat, so that was fascinating. Thank you again. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a few minutes left. I see some questions already in the chat. Please put your questions. I'm going to say in the Q&A box if possible. It's just a little easier on the screen, but if they're already in the chat, don't worry. Irman, just say I think I'm fascinated by the idea of sustainability, and I think you mentioned quite well the need to make these sustainable both from a national perspective, an employee perspective, but then a student perspective as well. I know you've mentioned regional cooperation as well. So do you just want to elaborate, I think, on how this motivation differs from the profit motivation you mentioned at the beginning?
Okay, so this was actually a big, to be honest, this was actually a big paradigm change for me, because I always, deal with educational programs, and we always think about we have to offer this program for the national needs. Programs and selling these programs at the international level, you come across some member states or some countries that say, if it doesn't, the university will ask you if it gives you a profit or not. That's the first question they ask you. If it doesn't give you any profit, why would we offer this program in the first place? So the motivation of like this, it's a bit different, because I think the biggest inherent difference is how developed countries work. For them, to obtain this knowledge, you can always get this from training that's been given by the organization themselves. So you just develop somebody, they'll come to the organization, the organization will give them another year's training to obtain all of the information that they need. This is a bit different from developing countries, where the employers want you to come out with already, complete students that don't require retraining. So this is how it's a bit different. So in our context, whenever an agency or a stakeholder says, could you please develop a program like this for our students? It means there's a need for it. And if it's a shared need between different agencies, then the university will be motivated to offer it, even though the return in income might not be that much. So that's how it's a bit different, I think. I hope
Thanks,
I
sir.
answered your question, Carl. Yeah?
No, absolutely. Thank you. And I have a couple of questions as well. So let me just go through them in the chat and
Yep.
absolutely. So I think the first question, what challenges do your graduates face as they apply their career from countries to countries where there are various differences in safety or security culture? But then I know you touched on that a little bit on the challenges, but secondly, after a master's program, how can one diversify or make students specialize in the other areas? Maybe that question came in just before your slide, but if you wanted to talk about that a little more.
Okay, so for the first question is, obviously, this program that we developed ourselves is catered for national needs. So whenever we talk about, for example, the regulatory framework, we will always refer back to our regulatory body and our regulatory framework, our regulations that we have. But because the masters was developed based on international standards, the material is shared. So an example is whenever we teach, for example, the regulatory framework, another student from a different member state will be would be a good opportunity for us to learn from that particular student about the regulatory framework in their country. So it's catered in that way so that it's very flexible in the way that everybody can learn from everybody. We had some experience doing this a few years ago. We had a student from Iraq joining us, our master's program. And when we're talking about the regulatory body, we had a lot of new insights about how our regulatory body in Malaysia differed from the regulatory body in Iraq and how they manage things and manage licensees and which guidelines they use. So that was quite interesting as well. Now, in terms of specialization, I totally agree. This is a very tricky question to answer, actually, because like I said in the beginning, when you offer a master's in 3S, you know a lot of things, but you're not really a master in one thing. So we try to sort this out by, the first thing is by the research project. So there's a huge element of research in doing this master's program. I think about like 20% credit going exactly into the research program, research part. So we tell the students, if you want to be more expert in nuclear security, for example, even though it's a 3S program, if you want to be have more expertise in nuclear security, do a research project which is in the nuclear security topics. If you want to be somebody more expert in safeguards, then do your research project in a safeguards project. So that way you have more understanding in your particular field that you want to expert in. Secondly, we also propose students that do the master's in 3S, if they're really interested in becoming an expert in a particular field, they should continue their education to the PhD level, right? And do maybe a proper PhD in nuclear security, or a PhD in safeguards, or a PhD in safety. That way you could really say that you're the expert of the field, right? So this is what we propose.
Thanks, Irman. I like the emphasis on continuing education. Absolutely. I'm just going to work my way through the chat, and you have a request from Brian Kingy to reach out to them afterwards. I'll send you their contact details, but they've put them in the chat.
Okay.
I think someone from the regulatory board in Uganda is interested. Excellent.
Yeah, based on my experience, because I've had a chance to travel to quite a lot of countries developing new education programs. There are a lot of the countries in the African region which are very similar in our situation. So we have a really small regulatory body. Our activities are limited to oil and gas and maybe research and norm. So it's very similar. So when I go there, I find it very surprising. It's like talking to somebody from my own country. And in this context, our approach might be perfectly suitable for you because it's a similar kind of background, similar kind of environment, similar kind of number of people, population. So there's a lot of similarities between the African countries and Malaysia.
Thanks, Irman. There's a reason we had you on. I'm just working my way through. You've got lots of compliments.
There seems to be a lot of chat. Sorry, I can't go through.
No, not at all. A question from Santiago, I guess, and a similar one related from Fateh, but about scholarships in the master's programs, or do you do them on a virtual basis? I know you mentioned the importance of equipment. How does that work in COVID or post-COVID times?
Okay. So I'll work out the first question, which is the scholarship. Now, at the moment, there's not that much money going into nuclear security education for scholarship. The only big thing going around now is the Marie Curie, Mary's, I don't know how to pronounce her name, Mary Skłodowska-Curie fund. So that, but that's specifically for ladies. So our university or our institution is one of the institutions that's being recognized by the IAEA that could accept these funds. So we propose that any of our students coming to do this fund, this program, could ask for this scholarship from the IAEA. However, like I said, this is limited to ladies, right? So for the guys, you have to find a different way of funding yourself, maybe from your own agency, or maybe finding a funding from the IAEA through different kind of nuclear security funds. It's possible. What was this next question? Equipment. In our case, we depend quite heavily on the National Nuclear Security Support Center in Malaysia. So like I said, they have a really big lab, 3 labs, and they have the loaner pool as well. So a lot of so based on our MOU with them, they agreed to that, allow us to use some of the equipment in our teaching. So that will help us quite a lot. So they've got a whole bunch of new RIDs, PRDs, backpacks, MDSs that we can use. So that will help students in hands-on activities. Did I miss another one? Was there another one?
No, I think just summarizing a few of the comments here. I think a lot of people were wondering if it's an online master's is achievable, but I guess less so because of the tactility of the machine and the difference between the theoretical learning you said and the hands-on experience.
Well, yes. I would say that there's a possibility of maybe trying to think about offering a virtual version, but the limitation is because we want you to have hands-on experience. There will still be some physical requirements for you to come to the university to at least do the laboratory work and the research work. So to say that it will be totally 100% virtual like was offered by the Brandenburg University a few years back will be almost impossible because there's still this hands-on element. But there's a possibility of you just having to go through your courses through online version, and then fulfilling the requirements of the other credits by person. So that's a possibility to discuss. Yes.
Thanks, Irman. And I think you may be shattering a few dreams of people who who wanted to go for that. But
well, I mean, I could say and make you happy and say nope, we can do it 100% virtual. But to be totally honest, you'll be missing out. In my experience in nuclear security, especially when dealing with equipment, it's always better and it's always more rewarding when you can actually hold the equipment in your hand and do the experiments yourself. You can learn the theory, yes, just by reading books and videos and stuff like that, but it's not the same. It's totally different. It's a totally different experience when you have the chance to actually work with it. So I wouldn't want my students to miss on this experience, I think.
Thanks, Irman. Got a question from Noel here. How much does it cost to set up a program?
Okay, so actually setting up a program itself is not that expensive. As long as there's no addition of new faculty members, no addition of new labs, or no addition of new equipment. It's relatively quite cheap, to be honest. And in our case, we had a lot of the assistance from the IAEA anyway. So a lot of the funding for the experts to come to us and show us how to set up the program, revise it, review it, look at it. A lot of this funding came from the IAEA anyway. So in a sense, we only spent very minimum amount of money to actually develop and offer the program. Now, it would be a bit different if you had no labs that you could go to and partner with for the lab. That would mean you would have to require some equipment, which can be very, very expensive. It would also be a bit issue if, for example, you had no expertise at all, which meant you had to import the expertise from somewhere else. You know, you had to call like experts from the IAEA to teach your courses. That will have a huge effect on the cost. But if you took quite similar approaches that we took, the cost, to be honest, is very minimum. As far as I know, it's very minimum.
Thanks, Irman. And I think that points to the element of regional cooperation or international cooperation as well. It increases the sustainability of individual programs.
Yeah, that's exactly that. So I'll put an example in the context of the African nation, for example, right? So for example, if Botswana wanted to offer a master's degree in nuclear security and they had no expertise, it would be much cheaper for somebody from Nigeria, for example, to come to Botswana and teach the course from the Nigerian Regulatory Authority, in comparison to maybe like having me come down and teach the course at Botswana, right? So having regional contacts, regional initiatives is actually a huge plus. In our context, the variation or diversification of expertise is also helpful. So in our case, we are more, in our university, we'll focus more on radiation safety and nuclear security. But if you go to like Chulalongkorn University, they have a very strong nuclear engineering department in instrumentation. And if you go to Indonesia, they have a very strong department in nuclear engineering. So we have like different expertise that complement each other. So by sharing these faculty members in teaching one course, we actually have like the perfect match of different faculty for one course. So you know, it's better to do it that way rather than try and build your own expertise in the very short time, because it can be very expensive then.
Oh, and that's fantastic. I know we're a little past the hour now, so I'm going to say thank you so much. This was an excellent talk, and I see from the comments in the chat function there some very much appreciation. I've posted your contact details, which were at the end of the slide in the chat, so I hope that's okay. And we also have in the chat a survey link. So before, ladies and gentlemen, before you go, please do take the time to fill out that survey. Otherwise, just to say, Irman, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you along.
Thank you very much again, Carl, and your group for allowing me to share this experience. I just realized that the former director of nuclear security, IAEA, was attending as well. So, Dr. Raja, thank you very much for joining. Another person that we can ask to share some experience, because he has a huge amount of experience dealing with nuclear security. And since he's a bit freeish now, I think we can also add him to the list of speakers for your next seminars next year. So I think he'll be more than happy to share his experience. And thank you very much. I just want to say, if there's any questions that I didn't manage to address, feel free to email me anytime. I'm more than happy to share my experiences with you. And if you have any experiences that you can share with us as well, please send an email and say how you did yours differently, and maybe we can learn some new tricks from you as well. Thank you very much, Carl.
Perfect, thank you. I think the mystery of the Mentimeter has been solved. Otherwise, thank you so much, and I'll catch up with you soon. Cheers all.
Okay.